So hello, my name is Scott Forehand. Today we're here to talk about some annuities, some little secrets about annuities and why things are made available to our clients during certain annuities and what it really means and the dirty secret, not dirty, but the secret behind it. So I'm going to focus specifically today. I'm going to use one of our carriers, which is one of the, I think, the largest, if not the largest annuity carrier in the world. Which is a company called Athene, which is owned by Apollo Investments. And you probably, if you're following financial news, you've heard a lot about Apollo recently. And we're talking about specifically about bonuses. So let's talk about why a bonus is needed. In some cases, when you're surrendering a previous annuity, there's going to be a surrender fee if you're surrendering within that period of time. Usually surrender fee, depending on the annuity that you're going to use, could be 7 years, could be 10 years, could be 15, could be 12. I've seen 14s. It just depends on which company you're with and what product you're with. But in all cases, there's going to be a period of time that if you cancel the program or try to take all the money out of the program at one time, you're going to pay a fee, and that's the surrender penalty. All right. So the idea with the bonuses is to make it feasible that you can absorb the surrender fee because you're going to replace it with a bonus on the back end with another carrier. That's why bonuses exist. And there's some, and I'm not going to advertise for their company, but there's one company out there that I know of that offers a 30% bonus, 30%. However, they have a 3% cap. So it doesn't matter that you're getting that 30% bonus in that particular example. Yeah, you can get 30% added. And if the market goes crazy, guess what? You're only getting 3% added to your nest egg. So in that case, you're getting a 30% bonus for what is going to be an underperforming asset. Okay. So that's why you would normally use a bonus. And one of the things that agents need to be careful of and be wary of is don't be enticed by that bonus. It's shiny, it's pretty, it's easy to explain to your client. It's something that's going to make a lot of sense to your client. But if you dig down deep into what's going on, you're sacrificing something somewhere, whether it's performance over time. So, for example, one of our top carriers for these products going from a bonus situation and they have a 14% bonus. You get a 14% bonus and the exact same index, exact same carrier, exact same product. But when you compare it to the 10-year program versus the 7-year program, the 10-year program gets the bonus, the 7-year doesn't, but the performance is hindered. Even though you've got that bonus, the performance, it's hamstrung to the point where the same index is now only performing at 75% capacity. And it's not because they put a cap on it. It's because, this is where you have to dig deep. It's because they changed the par rate, participation rate. Okay. So when you're looking at those things over time, all that stuff, it all comes together. And in the end of the day, there's no company out there that's going to give away more money than they're earning. It's not realistic. They can't do it. So don't think that you're gonna find that golden egg out there, because it doesn't exist. Okay. In the end, these companies exist for one purpose, and it's to make money. So if they're not making money, they're not offering the program, right? So rest assured, they're making money. Now, the bonus piece that I want to demonstrate, and this is where you have to kind of dig down into the minutia of how it performs. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and I'm going to see if you guys can see what I'm trying to illustrate here without me telling you that what I'm trying to show you. All right. So this is Athene. You guys see my screen? Okay. This is the Athene Performance Elite 7. This is the exact same hypothetical client in all three cases. This person does not exist. I've never met anybody named valued client. Okay. So this is the same annuity each time. We're using the 3 different Performance Elite products that are the standard Performance Elite. There's also a Performance Elite Plus. I'm not worried about that one. I'm worried about this one. This is the basic one. So you've got the Performance Elite 7, which means there's a surrender period for 7 years. Performance Elite 10 for 10 years, 15 15 years. That's what those numbers mean. And then when we're looking specifically, you'll notice the Performance Elite 7 annuity, hypothetical illustration based on $100,000, right? Well, this is the 10, $100,000 and a premium bonus of $12,000. And here's the 15 and a premium bonus of $15,000. So the 10 and the 15 in this particular example both pay bonuses, right? But did you notice what happens to the numbers? Let's go back. Your accumulated value, you start with $100,000. Your cash surrender value is $159 at age 76. This is for the 7. For the 10, look familiar? For the 15, look familiar? So how can they do that? How can they give you a larger accumulated value, but your cash surrender value isn't changing? And we are well beyond the surrender period here. How can they do that? The only way they can do that is because they're hindering the performance either by a cap or by par rate. So that's where you have to dig in deep with these things and really, really take a look. So I would always advise, whenever you're looking at which one of these annuities you're going to recommend to your client, to run, if there's different lengths of time available within one particular annuity, and there usually are, if there's different lengths of time, I would run a couple of different illustrations with the same amount of money, the same client, and the ones with a bonus and the ones without a bonus, to really see what's going on. Because in the end, right now, of these 3, if they're all performing the same and there's a target where we're going to have the same amount of money at a specific point in time in the future, it's probably better to go ahead and give them the 7-year program. All right. Let's go here. Hold on one second. Show you the next screen that I want to talk about.
Scott, would that be using an assumption that they wanted to have access to the money earlier?
That's another one of the considerations, and that's part of it also, because then you have to look at what's the maximum free withdrawal amount. So you're looking at, usually the 7-year programs are going to have a 10% maximum withdrawal amount. And almost invariably, I've never seen one that doesn't. The 15-year program is going to have a maximum withdrawal amount of 5%. Okay. Almost all of these are going to start, the free withdrawal is going to start in year 2. But in the end, you still have to look at the rules of how the money got here, where it's from. And if you started with an IRA that I rolled over for a 45-year-old, it doesn't matter to you that you can take 5% in year 2. You're still going to be penalized because you're touching a retirement program before you're supposed to, before you're retired. So I heard an agent talk to me the other day. He's like, I figured out a way how to get my money out of my IRA early. Oh yeah, how's that? I roll it into an annuity, and I'm going to start taking distributions in year 2, the free withdrawals. No, you're not without penalizing yourself, because the IRS, they don't play. All right. So is that where you were going with that, George?
Yeah. However, my thought process on it was, I think the bonuses were 10, 12, and 15, right?
It was 0, 10, and 15.
Oh, 0, 10, and 15. Okay. So if they're going to perform the same.
Yep.
Why wouldn't, and you didn't have a horizon, you didn't have a time horizon
right,
where you needed access to it, then why, if that seems to be the primary factor, why you wouldn't go with a 10 or a 15?
Why wouldn't you choose the 7 unless that's the idea, because you're tying up someone's money, so why wouldn't you choose the 7 in that example? The only reason I would ever, now that we're digging deeper into how the metrics and mechanics of these programs work, why would you use the 15 ever? Unless there's a bonus needed because you're trying to surrender another program,
right,
and you need that. Or if your client is only concerned about the near-term benefit, near term, because they are, they are showing an accumulated value on year one that's got that bonus added to it. It's still there. So you can still look like the hero. Okay. But you need to, temper that with, does it really make sense to do that? Does it really make sense to tie that person's money up for 15 years just to get a $15,000 bonus that, when we know in the end, because of the participation rate differences, they're going to perform about the same if you're looking down line 10, 15 years.
Doesn't the bonus, Scott, like people oftentimes think of that as, oh, I got free money, when the reality is they can't touch it, A. B, isn't it used primarily to help with the compounding interest? Isn't that kind of the piece of it that helps?
So for an unscrupulous agent, it's a marketing thing. Look, I can get you 15% tomorrow. Yep, you can, but it's not real. It's an illusion. Because that's the other thing you got to think about with these bonuses. You don't, even though the illustration may say that the money's in there, the reality is it gets vested over time. So when they do their calculations and they do their math, yes, it's included, and yes, the math is based on the full amount, as long as you're not touching the money too soon and you're playing by the rules. But in the end, does it make that much of a difference? And I'm going to say, for the 15% that ties my money up for 15 years, I'd rather do a 7 and then do another 7. Have immediate access to that 10%. If I don't need the bonus, I'm not doing the bonus. The only time I need the bonus really is if I'm trying to roll something. There's another thing to talk about there too, about the bonuses. There's a maximum rate at which you can move money from one program to another, where the receiving custodian is not going to accept it if there's too much of a surrender fee. All right. So in general, there's a lot of companies out there that won't take it if there's a surrender fee that's greater than 5%. There's a lot of companies out there that won't take it if the surrender fee is greater than 3%. So in that particular example, not only do you have to have the right company that's going to accept it if there's a surrender fee on what you're moving, but there also has to be a bonus there so that you can demonstrate why it's going mathematically, so why it makes sense to do it. So that's another one of these little quirks about writing these programs and doing these programs. I see you, David. I see you nodding your head up and down. So I think you too, Michael, it looks like you guys might have been through some of this stuff already and had some of these issues. So this is supposed to be an open forum, guys. This isn't just Scott Forehand talking. And I appreciate you, George, stepping in and shining the flashlight on some of these other issues that we're talking about. But go ahead, Michael.
Scott, I was the victim of one of these unscrupulous agents, because I rolled over 135K annuity into the Athena Elite 10.
Okay.
At a time when they gave me some incredible bonus, right? And not realizing that I was giving up the participation rate and everything like that, and now Athene says I can't move it. So,
Yeah. How long ago was that?
What's that?
How long ago was that?
It was 1 year ago.
Yeah, you're stuck.
A year ago next month.
You're stuck for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long is a while?
Realistically, probably another 3. It's a 10-year program.
Yeah.
The first companies are going to touch you are probably going to be able to touch you when you're at year 5.
Okay. Well, live and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, David.
I'm glad it was me instead of a client, though.
Yeah. And there's always a silver lining. And now, you had the experience as a consumer. Okay. And you're probably not real happy with that agent that helped you with that. And so now don't do that.
Exactly.
It's a great way to torpedo a relationship.
Exactly.
Right. What do you got, David? Anything to add to this?
No, I'm new to all this. I'm just kind of taking it all in, but it just sounds like a bait and switch, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a marketing angle.
That's it.
And 7 years money tied up, or
or 10 years money
years.
signed up with a 10% bonus, but the bonus gets vested over 10 years and you can't move it for 10 years. And in the end, it doesn't really perform better.
Right. So even if we look at years down the road, it's still gonna,
Right.
because of the par rate, it's
Yep.
gonna come out in the wash. Really.
Yeah.
You're
Now,
not-
one caveat. Look, all carriers are not created equal. Okay, so you will find ones that maybe they don't modify the par rate.
Mhm.
So one of my favorite carriers, Security Benefit, they do modify the par rate. And that's how I discovered this whole working with one of my clients. We found this, it's like, we did the 10-year program and you got a bonus, but if we'd done the 7-year program in year 9, you'll actually have more money because the par rate is higher.
Mhm.
Some of the culpability goes to the carriers too, because don't kid yourself. These are marketing things they do
Sure.
so that they have a leg up over, like when you look at this and an agent who may not know everything, right, looks at this and say, yeah, this is way better for my client. And I'm going to choose this company over that company because they've got this bonus, which is obviously why Scott's doing this to begin with.
Yeah. Yep. And in the end, once you discover it, if it's more than 30 days after the fact, your client is stuck. And they're not gonna, you can't do a free look. And I have been through that with a couple of clients, free looking annuities, and it is a royal pain in the rear to try to put the skids on everything. And then you've got other tax event issues like, okay, well, we moved money, the money was received, you're going to free look this, which means the money's going to go back. And if the money was out of that IRA for more than 62 days, you're going to have a taxable event. And then they're looking to you, the agent. Okay, well, who's paying that tax? Okay, so hopefully you don't need to use your errors and omissions insurance because you only get to use it once and then you're done. That's a one and doneer. Right.
Scott,
Andy. Hi, Andy.
yeah, let's talk about RMDs and maximum withdrawals without penalties.
Okay. What do you want to do?
So in a circumstance where you have maybe a couple annuities and a couple IRAs, are you saying that the 10% limit or whatever limit on the annuity, that's it? That's all that you can take without penalty? It doesn't go up to the RMD?
No. So your RMD, the RMD requirement by the federal government is always going to trump whatever your maximum withdrawal is.
Okay,
If your RMD is 6% and you're an annuity that offers only a 5% maximum withdrawal, then you can take the 6% and they cannot penalize you. But here's the deal. If you're to that point, because RMDs don't start off that high, they start off at like 3.9%. So if you're at that age where the RMD is above 5, and I don't know what age that is, but it's up there, it's 70s, 80s, then you're not getting one of these programs anyway. You're too old for it. They wouldn't let you take it out to begin with. It's like the maximum age on a PE 15, I think, is 70. Okay, so yeah, I can see where your question is coming from, but the reality is that the carriers know that, and these are structured with certain ages that you can and can't do this with. So you're not going to run into that problem, not unless something crazy happens. Like, I don't know, you maybe have an inherited IRA and the law just got waived yesterday that now you can go back to that 10-year mark, where before you had to, because of I think it was the CARES Act that came out a couple of years ago, where they changed the length of time you had to take an inherited IRA to where you had to take it all over a course of 5 years. And the previous rule was 10 years. And now they just went back to the 10-year rule. So that's a good thing for all of us. So
not the IRS expected lifetime number.
no, that's not a factor.
It was.
It's not right now. An inherited IRA, you got by law 5 years.
Oh, IRAs,
10
yes.
years.
Inherited qualified annuity.
Okay, it's going to follow. It should follow the same rules as an IRA.
It didn't, but
Okay.
we'll take a look at the law and see what happens.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Georgie, you look very astute in those glasses.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I don't know what to say about that. Maybe the eyes are the windows to the soul. So
There you go. You know, here's the thing. This is really interesting about a lot of this stuff. At the end of the day, for all annuities, there's three things that govern the performance of an annuity. It is participation rate, cap, and spread. So because the way the human mind works, it's near impossible to start calculating performance when you have three variables. So my suggestion for you is to look for programs where one of those three variables gets eliminated. Either no cap or a participation rate that doesn't modify or adjust, which I don't know any of them that are out there that don't, or no spread. And you know, if you can eliminate one of those three variables, then it's going to be easier for you to figure out which one is best for your client, rather than running 200 illustrations to see what each one does, how you switch stuff around. And when you're trying to compare performance, you should always use exactly the same distribution model on all the different pieces. You know, obviously, if you're trying to compare an Athene product to an F&G product, they don't have the same indexes available. But you know, but you can actually find some S&P stuff until you start digging down deep into what version of the S&P are they talking about? Is it S&P month to month, or is it the year to year? What do they do? You know, you gotta read the fine print.
Scott, so far you've talked about Athene, which is something that you can do your own case design on and everything. But I also know that you do write a lot of security benefit, strategic growth products, and what have you, which go through Advisors Excel, correct?
Until you reach a certain volume, and then you're given access to a program that allows you to do your own illustrations.
Okay. And they give you carte blanche on that, or it's still got to go past their sniff test?
Nope, you get your own login. You can log in directly to the carrier, run your own illustrations directly at the carrier.
Okay.
Good question.
Did I answer your question, Georgie?
It did. I'm nowhere close to that, but you know, and always hear good things about, you know, what they're able to do over there.
You know, unless you're writing a ton of annuities, Advisors Excel, just lean on them. They're real easy to work with. You know, they'll do all the illustrations, they'll make the recommendations, unless you've already studied the indexes and you know what you want. And that's what I do. I have the ability to go in and run my own illustrations. I don't. I simply log into Advisors Excel and say, hey, please run me an illustration for a 74-year-old man. His name is blah, 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 and his date of birth is blah, blah, blah. I would like to do the security benefits strategic growth 7. I would like 50% into the UBS Maya no fee index for 1 year, and I'd like 50% in the UBS Maya 4 fee index for 2 years. And then they, you know, an hour later, it's waiting in my inbox. So they're real easy to work with. And
yeah, my comment on this, and it's kind of off subject here a little bit, is for those of you who are all with Symmetry Financial Group, and it's like there's a certain point where if this is what you want to do, right? If you want to write annuities and you want to be that guy, right? And you want to continue doing that, and it's very noble and it's great. You're helping people, especially, you know, when we look at the wagon's turning around for the first within 10 years, there'll be more people over 65 than there are below 18. And it's so who's pulling the wagon anymore, right? And so there is a lot of opportunity to write a lot of this business, right? And you can go to work and you can do that. But I can tell you, just from my perspective and what I've seen being with Symmetry for 11 years now, is you should know a good bit about it. But everything from an advanced markets thing I've done, other than IULs, most all of it, I've shuffled through someone like a Scott Forehand or an Advisors Excel. Spend your time finding the Scott Forehands, right? and building your agency. Like that's where you're going to find the most, the greatest income and permanent, passive and duplicatable income.
Passive,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I'm nowhere, you know, I don't even like, it's not even close. Like if Scott and I are in a room, two different rooms and they're completely pitch black, and our intelligence determines how much light comes off of us, my room's still pretty black. Right. But the cool thing is I just opened the window between the rooms and some of his light shines through, you know, so.
Well, Georgie, I owe everything I have here at Symmetry to you. Because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you.
Well, it was a joint effort between Janet and I, you know, to lasso this guy in.
All right, does anybody have any other questions about what we're talking about today, which is bonuses and the dirty little secret about them? Go ahead, Andy.
Quick definition of spreads. I've
Yeah.
read about them. I can't figure out what they mean and what they do to my allocation value.
The end result of a spread is that you get less money added to your account because that spread is what the company's using to capture some of their profit.
Got it. But how do you calculate that? You know, what is spread?
The spread is determined by contract in each contract. There's a statement.
It says what the spread is, but what does it mean?
So here's just a fast example. Let's say that the particular program you're using had the index had a 5% growth for that year, and your participation rate was 150%. So that means in theory, 7.5% would have been added to your account. However, no cap, so you get all 7.5%. But the spread is 1.5 points. So that means your 7.5% that you earned, it's not what you receive. And you're going to receive 1.5% less. So your net gain would be 6%.
So it's like a cap.
It's kind of like a cap, but it's not. I mean, the cap, you know, if you had a gain of 20, if the market went up 10% and your index was indexed to that market part that went up 10%, and your par rate is 225%, okay? If your cap rate is 15%, then you would have, without the cap, you would have gained 23, 24, 25%, but now you're stuck at 15. So the spread is off the top of the gain. The cap is suppressing the maximum gain. They ultimately end up limiting how much you receive, but one is vastly greater than the other. The spread does not affect as much. In theory, I mean, you could have it so it does. You could have it so that, like, let's say the market only gains 2%, and then you're in a participation rate of 200%. So you got 4% gain, no cap, but a 1.5 point spread. That means you're only getting 2.5 points. So the spread can be very offensive on years with small gains.
What if the gain is zero?
Then you've got zero loss. There's no the spread. There's no gain to take off the top of the spread. There's nothing for the spread to take money away from.
Okay, so you need to earn at least 1.5% to get zero.
Yeah, there you go. If there's a 1.5 point spread.
So question, so you said there are 3 variables: par rate, cap, and spread.
Yep.
And if you can eliminate one of them,
Yep.
is there any rule of thumb as to which one is preferred to be eliminated?
Of
Or is
all
it
those 3
case by
things
case?
that you can adjust, that can be, you know, when you're hunting for what's the right annuity for the client, my personal, and the way I do everything, I look for ones that don't have a cap.
No cap.
And that's it. Because then realize all I'm looking at in those ones that don't have a cap, I'm looking at what is the index performance over time. Because if I don't have a cap and I've got an index that performs well with a high par rate, then that's how I can get that 20, 30% growth per year for my clients. with an average of somewhere between 15 and 25% over time. That's how you get there. And that cap is a killer. Because when you see caps, it's usually not 25%. It's usually 8, 10, 12, sometimes even lower. So caps are killers. They're growth killers. Yeah, Michael.
So Scott, where are the annuity companies and products that you tend to look for that you found in your experience currently don't have caps?
I use 5 different companies. I use, at the end of the day, here at Symmetry, we have access to really thousands of products and literally probably 60, 70 different annuity companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are all not created equal.
Right.
Like one of my favorite carriers is Mutual Trust Life. Their annuity is garbage. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Okay. So where do you go? Okay.
Yep.
So the 5 that I use, and there's a reason for each one. I use Security Benefit for Growth because it has access for 0 fee, no cap, high par rate to the UBS Maya index, which is what I think is probably the strongest index in the market these days. The second company I use is North American for the Prime Path Pro. They have a great index available to them, the Morgan Stanley Dynamic Global, MSDG. Do not confuse it with the Morgan Stanley Dynamic Composite, MSDC. That is a garbage index. The MSDG is the winner. So it's the Morgan Stanley Dynamic Global. Again, no cap, high par rate. So that one's doesn't perform quite as well as the Security Benefit, but it's not designed for growth. That program is designed as a Swiss Army knife because it comes with that enhanced benefit rider, which acts like similar to long-term care without clients having to pay for or qualify for it medically. And that there's 2 other really cool things about that program. Number 1, it's participatory, so you can continue to add to it anytime you want. Up to 5.
But if you funded it, sorry for interrupting, but if you funded it with qualified funds, you have to continue to add qualified funds.
Yeah. So if I have, here you go, ding, ding, what you just said, let's play into that. All right. I have to pay taxes and I'm going to pay taxes and I'm at that 24% tax bracket. But if I made $2,000 less, I'd be at that 22% tax bracket. What am I going to do? I'm going to drop $2,000 into my Prime Path Pro, which is qualified. And now all of a sudden, I just reduced my taxable income this year because I made a qualified contribution to my retirement program. And I just dropped myself a tax bracket of 2%. Massive, massive gain. Okay, so you can play that game both ways. And another interesting thing, not only is it participatory, but it's got annuitization and de-annuitization. I've never seen any of them do that.
Could you explain those terms, annuitization versus de-annuitization,
Yep.
Scott?
This is the only on the market that I know of right now. This is the only one you can do that with, which means when you annuitize an annuity, what you're doing is you're cutting off the growth potentially and turning it into a permanent income stream.
Mhm.
That permanent income stream is either going to be period certain, which means I know it's going to be for 10 years, 15, 20, 25, whatever, or it's going to be for life, or for life plus spouse, depending on how you structured it, right?
Mhm.
So that's what annuitization does. It guarantees income for the expected longevity and longer potentially of the underlying annuitant. Well, you can de-annuitize this one. I flipped it on because I need to make sure I need permanent income. Now my need for permanent income is no longer there. I can turn it off, turn it back into growth.
Hmm.
That is unique as far as I've seen, that is unique in the industry. And then finally, the Prime Path Pro, $500 minimum contribution. If you're looking at people who are setting up IRAs, they're probably putting in about $500 a month, or maybe it's 500 every other month. You can use it just like an IRA. Okay, that's the Prime Path Pro. So that's the second one that I like. The third one I like, Investors Heritage. I like Investors Heritage simply because it has the best performing guaranteed income stream out there. Nationwide is a close second, but Investors Heritage takes the cake by 0.1%. And there's two other companies that I use, and these are
Say that metric again.
Investors Heritage has the highest guaranteed income stream. So that's the LIBOR, the lifetime income benefit rider. They have the highest guaranteed LIBOR. And it's 0.1% better than Nationwide, which used to have the highest. And then the other two companies that I like, Athene, for obvious reasons, just like in life insurance, I like Mutual of Omaha because they've got everything, right? And that's why I like Athene. They've got everything. They're a known product. It's a known name. They're in the press. They're a massive, massive company. And they've been around the block for a while. Their stuff performs. They're average or a little bit better than average. They're easy to do business with. They're easy for the clients to use, and they've got a lot of different tools. And then finally, the last one I like is Fidelity and Guarantee. And the reason why you have to have, you can't just do one, in my opinion, is if you start adopting the annuity stacking routines that are available, which is a great way to distribute timing risk for your client. If you start doing that, you should never put all your eggs in one basket. And while I don't think any of these carriers that we're talking about have any chance of failing, you never know. So when I do stacks, I'm going to incorporate programs from all the carriers. And it's just because I want to distribute risk amongst the carriers as well. Plus, that gives you access. You know, the UBS Maya index outperforms every other index 17 out of 20 years. But there's 3 years that it doesn't. Okay. So that means maybe I called it right and got one with, the Athene BN Paribas is performing that year. I don't know. But I'm going to.
Scott, the F&G, you're talking about the Accelerator Plus?
Maybe. Or the Flex Accumulator. I like them both. So it's so I told you the three specifics with the three carriers that are my three favorites, and then Athene. I don't have a particular one from Athene, other than I do write a lot of that PE7 because it's got a 10% withdrawal rate, and it's a short-term annuity. And if I'm looking at a client where the majority of my focus needs to be short-term because they're in their 60s or their 70s and they need access to 10% of their money, then I'm not using 10 and 15-year programs that have only the 5% withdrawal rate. I'm using 7-year programs, and I don't want to use only 7-year programs from one carrier. I want to diversify. That's it. So it's all about risk mitigation.
So if I have 100K for somebody, but it's not qualified funds, and they're in their 60s or they're 64 years old, then an annuity might not be the right vehicle for them.
When do they need the money?
Their house is paid off. They don't need the money. I mean, for the foreseeable
An
future.
annuity is the right vehicle for them.
Okay.
Yep, it's just you do a non-qualified annuity.
You just do a non-qualified, but would you still look at them in the order of security benefit versus North American?
Maybe. What's the goal? Like this, you're asking that's a hard question to answer because you got to know it's not what I want. It's what do they want?
Yeah. Well, they
want
want
to get
the
the money.
max. They
How
want
much
the
do you think
maximum.
they're going to need to get to?
Yeah.
When do they need it? How much do they need? And what do they want it to do? Do they want it for permanence, longevity? Do they want it for short-term income? Do they want to get that enhanced benefit rider and get long-term care because they've got a $400 a month long-term care payment that maybe they can drop down to 200 because they've got 200,000 of additional long-term care coverage over here? So there is no one answer. This is always about what does the client need?
And it could involve a legacy portion.
There's a different piece. There's the, what is it? The Ascent Pro Bonus 2.0 with Athene is a death benefit focused annuity that has a 2.5x multiple.
Mm.
So if if like that, and I use that one for people that want additional death benefit, or maybe it's an estate tax issue. I know I'm going to have a lot of estate taxes because my estate is $13.5 million. So my kids, when they receive my estate, are going to owe tax on $1.5 million. So I just simply do the math. Okay, what's that going to be? 30% of 1.5 is 500. So they're going to owe $500,000 worth of tax. Well, let's put some money into an annuity to get us to that 500,000. So what's 500,000 divided by 2.5? It's 133,000 or something like that. And that's how much you start the annuity with, because it creates that death benefit that's going to be able to cover that tax nut. And that's another way to get around from an estate planning perspective of what another way you can use an annuity for that.
And in that example, if the legacy issue is keeping a business alive after you're dead, that death benefit might come in real handy.
Potentially. Yep, could be. Now you're talking about business continuation stuff. And there's other ways to do that too. I'm not sure I'd use an annuity for that. I'd probably use a life insurance program for that if the underlying individual is insurable. And if they're not, then yeah, you're looking at the same thing here, using cash value of an annuity with a 2.5x death benefit multiple and using that as the tool.
So businesses.
That's not free, by the way. You have to pay 1 point for that.
But if you're trying to keep the farm in the family,
Yep.
you might need it.
Yeah, sure. All right. Anybody else?
So Scott, can I just share my screen and show you this DFL form they filled out?
I'm not going to be able to show you on this because I'm recording this and I can't have any real client information on the screen.
Okay, got it. It won't have their name on it though. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, we can do that offline.
Okay.
All right.
Scott, you mentioned the Performance Elite 7 in that example where they wanted growth, but they wanted to have access, and that one had 10%. Doesn't the Strategic Growth 7 typically outperform it, but still yet give them the same 10% access?
It does. They both do. So
Okay.
if all I've got is one tranche of money, I'm going to use the Security Benefit Strategic Growth 7 if that's the only amount of money I have. But if I've got $300,000 that I'm looking at, I'm going to break that puppy up into 3 or 4 different programs. And I'm going to have, if the end goal across the board is that I'm going to need access to 10% of this $300,000 every year, then I'm going to do 3 Strategic Growth 7 programs and 1 Athene PE 7, simply because I want to diversify.
Right. And that plays strong to the psychological value that all of us are in, like, that don't put your eggs in one basket, right?
Yep. Sure. Yeah.
So
And then the other thing is, once you've got that diversification, you can start even within the programs themselves, you can start diversifying additional risk by choosing different series of indexes. Now, if the only focus is growth, then there's no reason to use, in my opinion, any index other than the UBS Maya and pay the 1 point growth fee. So you can get a 3.3 multiple. You can get 330% par rate. And that's massive. Massive. Anybody else? You guys are gonna let me go eat dinner tonight? That's awesome. Hello.
Can we ask questions about non-annuity and non-bonus stuff?
Not tonight. This is
Okay.
annuity training.
Okay, got it.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Hopefully you got something out of this.
Sure did.
Help some families. Bye.
Thank you, Scott.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
George, for
Thank
your
you, Scott.
kind words earlier. I appreciate
Scott.
that.
Thanks, Scott. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you too, Leah. Bye, guys.